We in the course of our life assimilate tons of data in the form of mental images, percepts, and information. All this data is part of us, it constructs our ET, namely, our existential track, which is a memory track with all our experiences on it. Think of the human mind as a sort of recorder. We record every bit of information and percept throughout our lifetime. This data is always stored in our database. The database is a theoretical entity that we use to represent our mind like a computer hard disk that saves records all information and percepts experienced in our existential track. For a better understanding, we must keep in mind that information and percepts are two different types of data, namely 1. Mnemonic data recording. This kind of data is also called an Autologie photorec or photographic recording. Photorecs are mental image pictures stored in our database after being experienced in our existential track. Those are stored mentally. Every bit of mentally stored information, under normal circumstances, passes through a process called data processing, which is the analysis of any kind of recorded and perceived image and/or datum. But, and that is really important, this kind of data is not to be confused with a physical percept, so it is not recorded as a physical sensation, but as an image of the physical sensation, or an event happened in the physical universe. Those mental images contain narrative, namely, what is or what happened, type of emotional charge negative or positive, and significance, a personal consideration regarding the event and/or information. Those elements made up the quality of a photorec. So, photorecs are precisely organized by our database based on time, when happened, and quality, which are measured by narrative, charge, and significance. Those photorecs influence actively and passively our life because they have actual mnemonic energy stored in them. Those energies can act as harmonic flows or disharmonic flows. By that, we mean that these flows can either represent a free flow of energy or a stuck chaotic mass of energy. Those flows are directly related to our emotional quality, which may vary between happiness, sadness, rage, apathy, hope, and so on. And in some cases to our physical health as well. The more disharmonic negatively charged our mind is, the more we will feel bad and unable to operate well in life. Those energy flows are all present in specific locations of our E-track as said before. If they are chaotic masses of energy, they start to cause what we call mental anomalies. Mental anomalies are any kind of irrational behavior. Be it illogical acting, senseless fear, violent behavior, panic, and so on. These are called also anti-survival behavior. Anything that harms one's own survival or other fellow men's survival is considered to be an anti-survival behavior. An anti-survival behavior does not need to be necessarily a violent action, but actually anything that can lower our or others' quality of life and survival probability. For example, having an unnecessary fight against our boss at work and ending up losing our job is so far an anti-survival action, because our job provides us our needed money for our survival and the survival of the ones which we must take care, like our family, as an obvious example. So as you can see, mental anomalies are directly or indirectly related to our survival. There are millions of mental anomalies, and it is not worth listing them all here, because it would take countless time, so for now, it is important that you grasp the anti-survival concept aforementioned. Negatively charged energy flows, called simply disharmonics in Autologie, they get stuck at some point of our E-track. When they get stuck, our focus units, which is to say, where we send our attention, remain totally or partially trapped in those points. When focus units are diminished, because trapped to some extent, also our rationality and IQ get diminished. Focus units and IQ are directly related, that's because if our attention is stuck in some past event or a specific thought, we lose to a certain degree contact with our present time. The loss of this additional attention represents also to a certain extent loss in survival potential, which leads also to potential anti-survival behavior, because we can end up by distraction or irrational action hurting ourselves or the others around us. Needless to say, all of this diminishes our emotional quality, which ends up adding more disharmonics and negative charge into our E-track. In lesser words, our focus units remain trapped in those energy masses present in our photorec collection. The behavior of those disharmonics depends upon the photorec content and how they act on our focus units. So the disharmonic energy can disperse or trap attention. Both of these phenomena cause confusion and illogical behavior. Illogical behavior is directly related to time, intended as self-perceived time, and space-time, intended as the movement of others, persons, and objects in our immediate ambient. Being the E-track a time-related entity, it can be messed up by energies which trap or confuse it. Photorec of disharmonics does it. Every photorec as mentioned before has its own content. That content is kept in our database. Having also significance concept, photorecs can be triggered. By trigger we mean a specific sensation or event in the present time which matches the content of one or more photorecs present in our database. When that happens, our focus units get scrambled around our E-track. Some remain in the present time and the remaining get trapped or dispersed. That creates attention ridges which are the result of fractions of focus units in the present time and other fractions in some past events through the E-track. That diminishes our IQ as well. Since we are experiencing again the energy contained in our photorecs, we feel as we were re-experiencing the same situation in the present time to some extent. Sometimes, if a photorec is very negatively charged, we can end up in a condition that we call replay. The replay is a condition where we are actually replaying in present time the behavior, emotional quality, content, and feeling of a specific photorec in our E-track. That is a major example of a mnemonic anomaly. So an anomaly contains time illogics, also a poor analysis of present time situation and information processing. The data is analyzed by similarities, which is to say, similar content in our database that resembles to some extent our present ambient. All those mechanics happens only because of disharmonic photorecs and 2. Cellular recordings. There is a main difference between mnemonic recording and cellular recording. The first one stops if someone sleeps, is unaware or unconscious. The other one never stops. Also, the first one records images, sensations, and information data, and the second one records only physical sensation and percepts. For a better understanding and a way of saying, the cells in our body never sleeps. Physical sensation interacts directly with mnemonic sensation, which means that unwanted physical conditions will affect mental and emotional quality. Physical trauma is the primary cause of insanity and mental anomalies. We call them cellrecs as opposed to photorecs. Those cellrecs, cellular recordings, unfortunately are always negative. There is no good cellular recording when those get stuck as trapped energy. Cellular recording is directly related to survival. It records mainly physical perception and perceived impact. It is what many used to call the reptile brain or animal mind. That means that as opposed to a regular photorec which has already a defined significance, a personal consideration on it and its direct cause as well, a cellrec instead, which is primitive, contains only the physical registration. The mnemonic memory is not easily reachable because the traumatic impact causes the victim to be unconscious for a moment or the whole duration of the event. That totally knocks out our focus units. But the event still remains entirely stored in our database, especially its percepts as cellular recordings. All of those percepts can become what we call triggers linked to those cellrecs and make us re-experience the sensations and emotional qualities present in the cellrec, but in this situation not only the content present in the cellrec. As a matter of fact, cellrecs can be attached to photorecs if they contain similar experiences and or percepts and vice versa as well, although it happens more rarely. That's because we normally cannot know what is causing the situation, and so we associate our perceptions and sensation to something related to our photorecs, thinking that those are the actual cause of our bad mood, well they're actually not. Cellrecs are sneaky because they are not mnemonic, and they get mixed up in our E-track with the other recs. Triggers take place when the present time environment or a present event is similar to our recs content. Be they photorecs or cellrecs. This is pure reptilian survival in the case of cellrecs. Because cells cannot give personal considerations, only the human mind can think through concepts, but rather they trigger, which is to say, they start to act upon us, based on physical sensation. We all know the 5 senses, they are basically all of our physical perceptics. For instance, if the environment contains the same smell, temperature, or even shape form as an environment present in our cellrec's content, the cellrec is going to trigger, triggering probably also another photorec on it. Basically, everybody knows the strange sensation in the stomach or the unexplained bad mood or anxiety that takes place all of a sudden and puzzles us. That's the trigger in action, so that you have a good idea of what a trigger actually is. We cannot explain the sensation, but we know that we are not feeling okay, so sometimes we think that the cause is some bad experience, which in 99% of the cases is not related to the actual cellrec. So those are the triggers which leads a subject straight to irrationality, diminished zest for life and generally bad mood. The cellrecs, as said before, are more tricky because they don't contain their own actual image. Sometimes they don't contain any image at all, but rather they contain the image and also the charge of an unrelated photorec. They trap also life force. Life force could be considered the willpower of our inner self. Through willpower comes creation, ability, and especially life. A good amount of life force also results in good emotional quality. When life force is low, also our emotional quality will result low. As we know, energy can be positive or negative. Positive energy creates and brings order, while negative energy destroys and brings chaos. The absence of energy could be considered no creation and no movement at all. As we can see, ability and emotional quality are directly related to focus units and willpower. Those can be considered in any way between harmonic positive ordered or disharmonic negative chaotic as aforementioned. The concept remains the same despite terminology. Time plays a great role in our E-track because our database stores everything based on it. Recs are ordered based on time of the event. Since recs triggers each other, a prior rec can trigger a later one and vice versa, scrambling our focus units as usual. That's why irrational behavior is time-bugged. It replays the content and sensation of past events and applies them to the present time. That basically traps us in time and older states of being. In lesser words, anomalies are disharmonics projected in the present time. Those are the whole mechanics of irrationality. Our goal is to make the individual harmonic and rational again.